Vanakkam Dohadevan, everyone. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Bidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And I will share the screen. We have our first topic. Hinduism, religion, or way of life? Interesting question. Today's presentation is a third approach to understanding Hinduism. The first was the introduction to Hinduism designed for groups and individuals who know little of Hinduism. The second was a mystical approach for those who know a good deal about Hinduism. Today's is a response to the commonly asked question about Hinduism simply as a way of life. This publisher's desk was written based upon being asked this question a number of times at satsangs. The text begins with a reference to that experience. Isn't Hinduism simply a way of life? This is a question I am frequently asked at satsang gatherings. It invariably makes for spirited discussion, as there is avid interest and a lively diversity of opinion. Years ago, Swami Chinmayanandaji, founder of Chinmaya Mission, gave a dramatic lecture on the subject. Here are his key excerpts. Hinduism is not a religion, it is a way of life. You can today hear it in every drawing room wherever youngsters are sitting and discussing Hindu culture in India. You can hear them blabbering this quotation. Hinduism is totally different. It is not a religion. Then what is it? It is a way of life. This is a false statement. No thinking man will accept it or give it any credit at all. This next sentence is a classic. What an abominable stupidity is wrapped up in such an attractive sentence. What an abominable stupidity is wrapped up in such an attractive sentence. Hinduism, it is not a religion, it is a way of life. Oh, I see. In Christianity, it is a religion? Oh, so it is not a way of life? What is religion without a way of life? How can there be a way of life without religion? Think. It is a self-contradiction to say it is not a religion. It is a way of life. If Hinduism is not a religion, it is only a way of life, then Christianity is a religion and therefore no way of life. What is religion without a way of life? Does not a religion guide us in our world, in our life? So it is an empty, high-sounding statement. Swamiji goes on to explain that the notion originated with German Indologists, such as Max Muller, who in the late 1800s translated the word mata as religion. To quote Swamiji, the Germans who first tried to translate our Sanskrit literature unfortunately made a great mistake. They used mata for religion. Buddha Mata, the religion of Buddha. Christava Mata, the religion of Christ. Muhammadiyya Mata, Islam. Then they came to Hindu Mata, and the poor Germans got confused, because in the Hindu religion there are very many Mata. It's an important point. In the Hindu religion there are very many Mata. It is a composite Mata. It's something Gurudeva also says. Mata comes from the Sanskrit word mati, meaning buddhi, intellect. That which is crystallized in the intellect is called a mata. Mata only means an opinion. Hindu religion contains Shankara Mata, Ramanuja Mata, Madhva Mata, various acharyas who have given various viewpoints of life and the attitudes or the thoughts of the Upanishads. They are all called Mata, Mata, Mata. So the Germans came to the conclusion that Hinduism is not a religion. Then what is it? It is the way of life. End of Swamiji's quote. Isn't that nice? He's very, very outspoken. Hindus inquiring about the merits of this infamous statement are generally not immersed in the practice of Hinduism. So that's a very important key, which is my experience. A person asking me is not someone who's doing sadhana every day. The question, the statement would never come up. They may have in mind that the sum total of Hinduism is to follow Dharma or to live virtuously and fulfill one's duty, and that there is no need to do more. Hinduism is a way of life, but it is a spiritual way of life, encompassing good conduct, worship, selfless service, scriptural study, and meditation. What is the definition of a spiritual way of life? Religion. Remember, the German ethnologists were no friends of Hinduism. Their redefinition of our faith as a non-religion was a powerful criticism, one that unfortunately Hindus themselves adopted. To deny, to deny that our faith is a religion is intellectual suicide and a global public relations disaster. I'll tell a story. It's in Mauritius. Quite a while ago, we must have been there on an inner search, and we had a gathering in the hotel there, a Hinduism Today gathering. So we invited our Hinduism Today supporters and subscribers and managed to fill the medium-sized room. It was a good group, very interested. And afterwards, a prominent attorney, I think he was even a judge, came up and started to enter into this debate with me that Hinduism was not a religion, it was just a way of life. And then halfway through his argument, he realized that if it was just a way of life, it wouldn't get any funds from the government. So the reality of being a way of life instead of a religion struck him, and he decided that, it might be true, but certainly not good public relations and certainly not good for receiving funds from the government to say you're not a religion. So it has its practical downside. Hinduism stands proudly with the great face of the world, and it does this not because it is a way of life, period. Our photo is of the Global Forum of Spiritual and Parliamentary Leaders held in Oxford, England in 1988, which had significant Hindu participation. So Gurudeva barely fit in the picture there on the lower right side facing the picture. See Dalai Lama in the middle. So those are all religious and parliamentary leaders talking about the world's challenges. You see Dr. Karan Singh there up in the middle, right side. So here's something to see if you're tuned in to what we're saying. Name 2 ways of life that are not religions. Popular ways of life that could be confused with Hinduism and thought of and make Hinduism seem secular or not a religion. So if a way of life is not a religion, there's no reference to God, there's no priests, there's no temples, there's no scriptures. Vegetarianism is a way of life. Nonviolence is a way of life. But neither is a religion, and neither will be invited to a parliament of the world's religions, as Swami Vivekananda was back in 1893. He was invited and he spoke to the world from the Chicago podium precisely because he was a Hindu. That's another great photo. Yes, there are those who think using the H word means something demeaning. But they are wrong. They are neglecting the import of the word religion on the global stage as well as in the local community among other faith groups. Standing together under the banner of Hinduism, we enjoy the many protections given to religions, and we have a respected, unified voice to the media, to government, to boards of education and planning departments. We have known quasi-Hindu groups who normally refuse to use the H word, but eagerly adopt it when they seek credibility in the broader community, such as in court cases. So these graphics are all from the Hindu Mandir Executive Conference annual gatherings. Sincere group of Hindu temple leaders in the U.S. Hinduism's finest future is to stand side by side with other religions, not other ways of life. Hindus who parrot the notion that Hinduism is not a religion are not serving Sanatana Dharma well. They have failed to see how wrong-headed this posturing looks in the eyes of the world. What if Muslims claimed Islam is not a religion, but just a way of life? Or Christianity, Judaism? They don't do that. They are proud of their spiritual identity, but for various reasons, including the persistent nuance of the colonized mind, Hindus hold on to this self-destructive fallacy. Colonized mind means in India, under the British rule, there was a lot of intellectual attacks, not so much attacks to destroy temples as in previous rules, but they attacked the intellectual ideas of Indians and made Hinduism seem primitive, and therefore the most elite intelligentsia abandoned it. Numerous swamis who established movements in the West in the mid-20th century perpetuated this idea as a means to teach Vedanta, yoga, and meditation to Christians and Jews without provoking religious objections. As a result, such concepts have become household words, but without being acknowledged as Hindu. Swami Chinmayanandaji said it so well. It is an empty, high-sounding statement, one we can all avoid. Happily, this is changing in small but important ways. The Hindu youth we encounter today are proud of their religion, eager to learn more about it. In universities the world over, Hindu students want to stand proudly side by side with students of other religions. That's our Hindu Students Association in Texas. Hindu American Foundation's Take Back Yoga campaign, which works to establish the practice as having its roots in the world's oldest faith, is a bold indictment of the way of life argument. So they've been very outspoken, Hindu American Foundation, that yoga comes from Hinduism. In each satsang I hold, one basic question invariably arises. How can I make Hinduism practical in daily life? What can I practice? What can I do? It's an important part of Hinduism. It's not just what you believe, it's what you do. And the question for you before we go into 5 areas, name 5 areas of practice within Hinduism. So my listing is in English here. You can use some Sanskrit if you want to. 5 areas of practice, 5 areas that are different. That's what it's trying to show, that there's a wide diversity of practices within Hinduism. I stress that to know and practice Hinduism in the fullest sense, one should engage in all the areas it encompasses: dharma, worship, selfless service, philosophical study, and meditation. Together, these five make for a complete physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual regimen to follow throughout life. So complete. It's like they all have something that the others don't. So when you put them all together, you get the complete regimen. So what I'll do is ask you a question and then present the material which gives the answer. What is the downside of devotional practice without philosophy? Devotional practice without philosophy can easily turn into superstition. Practices that started generations ago, which made sense to those individuals, get passed on without the reasons why we're doing them, and pretty soon we're doing a number of things, and we have no idea why. What is the downside of philosophy without devotion and selfless service? That one's pretty self-evident. Philosophy without devotion and selfless service can devolve to mere intellectual argumentation and speculation. And we're back in the university. So we don't want to pursue philosophy at that shallow level. What is the downside of taking Hinduism as only a way of life? Well, we should be able to answer that one with the material we just covered. Taking Hinduism as only a way of life, one misses out on the inner beauties, on the inner benefits of devotion and philosophy. What is the limitation of leaving out meditation? Without meditation, one has no way to experience the oneness of Atman and Brahman, of Jiva and Shiva, which leads to illumination and liberation. So we'll look at these 5 layers more closely. Dharma is the foundation of Hindu religion, encapsulated in the code of conduct called yamas. We know yamas: reigning in, instinctive nature. We don't become angry and harm others. So basically, yama is the reining in, which is what the picture is showing. The dog, who is representative of the instinctive mind, sometimes needs to be reined in so the dog doesn't do the wrong thing. Cows don't always go where you want them to go. Here we get some energetic dogs to rein in. Seva, selfless service. It's giving one step further than just making a donation. We're actually giving of our time, which is more of a sacrifice. Selfless service need not be limited to the temple. It can be done at work, at school, wherever we are in the world. So that's an aspect of selfless service that I stress. In other words, 100 years ago, great majority of Hindus lived a lot closer to a temple than they do today. So you could do your seva at a temple or at an ashram or a monastery. But it's hard to get to a temple even to worship for many people, let alone to do seva. So we need to do it wherever we are. If we're a student, we do it at work. If we're a student, we do it at school. If we're an employee, we do it at work. We help other employees. Wherever we are in the world, we can find people to help. So at work, help means, selfless service means we're doing something we're not getting paid for. We're helping other people in a way that's not in our job description. Devotional practices such as attending puja at a temple, going on pilgrimage, conducting puja in one's home shrine, and repeating a mantra and japa beads deepen humility and raise the subtle energies to the higher chakras of cognition and divine love. That's a beautiful picture there. So scriptural study builds a firm foundation of philosophical clarity, an accurate understanding of God's souls and world that enhances and informs every aspect of one's life. So Vedas and Agamas, Smriti as well. Choice of material should be in consonance with one's sectarian philosophy. For example, if one's lineage is Advaitic, that study should reinforce the idea that we are already one with God, that nothing has to happen for this to be true. Oh, it's an important distinction here, how we approach Scripture. I made a statement earlier which may have sounded like it was being critical of scriptural study, but it's not. It was simply saying that the type of scriptural study that one would do in a university to pass a test is not this type of scriptural study. This type of scriptural study is trying to have, study one section over and over again, trying to generate your own personal insight. You're trying to gain new knowledge from within by that study. So that's the idea of Siddhanta Shravana. Gaining new knowledge or gaining new experiences by repeatedly studying portions of Scripture. Meditation and other yogic sadhanas, fifth aspect of Hinduism, are the doorway to personal realization. Meditation can propel the individual beyond philosophical concepts about divinity to actual experience of those truths. This can be compared to reading about the taste of a ripe, juicy mango versus actually taking your first bite. Which would you prefer? And that is a very tasty looking mango there. Two primary approaches. The first, Raja Yoga, consists of what we know, the 8 steps. Second, Jnana Yoga is a path of scriptural study, which we were just talking about. Reflection and constant, profound meditation. These 5 dimensions are found in all of Hinduism's diverse lineages, with each sect and sampradaya treasuring and preserving its own cultural, devotional, and philosophical uniqueness. So that's our last slide on that subject. And I hope if you enter into a discussion with someone on, isn't Hinduism just a way of life and not a religion, you're better prepared than you were before. And also you have a deeper understanding yourself of the difference between ways of life that are not a religion and ways of life that are religions. That's the first part. And then the second part is we always want to stress that Hinduism has a diversity of practices within it. If you don't stress that enough, someone will feel left out. If they don't enjoy devotional worship and that's all you present, then they feel that Hindu practice is not for them. But if you present all 5 aspects, hopefully one or more they will grab onto as something that relates to what they have a natural interest in at this time in their life. And we're back to January, February, March 2022 issue of Hinduism Today. Which is a continuation of the feature article, Mauritius Youth Reflect on Hinduism. So See Kavadi there. Thaipusam's coming up. Oh, Kavadi is always a big practice in Mauritius. It's more so a national practice than in other countries. So I thought facts would be interesting. A few facts about Mauritius and a comparison to Hawaii. Population, Mauritius, 1.27 million. Hawaii, 1.46 million. So you can see they're very close. Both are shrinking, I think. So roughly, if you average it, it's 1.3 million. The country of Mauritius has as many people as the state of Hawaii, 1.3 million. Kauai has 72,500, or Mauritius has 17.5 times more population than Kauai. Visitors per year. Mauritius has 1.4 million visitors per year. Hawaii has 10.4 million. So even though they have the same population, Hawaii has about almost 8 times as many visitors. So you can see visitors are more important in Hawaii to the economy than Mauritius. Kauai has 1.4 million visitors. In other words, Kauai and Mauritius have the same number of visitors a year, even though Mauritius is 17.5 times more people than Kauai. So you can see Kauai has a huge number of visitors. Same number as Mauritius, even though the population of Mauritius is 17.5 times more. There are times on the island when 1 out of every 4 people is a visitor, certain times a year. Group of 4, 3 are residents and 1 is a visitor. So that's really dependent on tourism. Back to Mauritius, it says half the population is Hindu. All Mauritian presidents but one and all prime ministers but one have been Hindus. And one of the great benefits of a Hindu majority government is most Hindu celebrations are public holidays. Jai. It's not the case. Midweek when you have Ganesha Chaturthi in the U.S. A government-appointed task force makes sure that state-observed holidays, festivals, and fairs are organized in a smooth and safe manner. Aside from that, the government doesn't interfere much with the religious traditions and customs of any religion. Oh, there's a very interesting comparison between Mauritius and the U.S. I found it kind of funny, and of course, if you live in one country without knowledge of the other, it wouldn't make any sense. But in Mauritius, the government supports all religions. There's no affiliation between government and religion. So it's a form of secularism. The government supports all religions. But it does so by giving money to all religions. Imagine that. So the Hindu groups, they get money from the government, registered Hindu groups. The U.S. is also a form of secularism, and the government doesn't give anything to religion, not a single dollar. So, totally different idea of what secularism is. Enough on our background, a beautiful picture of Mauritius there. And our youth of the day, Yadav Muneshar. So our author says, I have known Yadav for the last 14 years. I have seen him as an obedient child sitting in prayers and as a mischievous teenager exploring spirituality by asking questions about every ritual during prayer and eventually becoming an ardent Krishna devotee and a project head at their family business, Govinda's Veg Food. Definitely I am a Hindu, he said, a vegetarian Hindu. He emphasized with a laugh. I asked, what's so funny? And he replied, I see Hindus all around the world talking about compassion while eating non-vegetarian food. Those things don't go hand in hand. And that's the only part I don't like about Hinduism. He continued, I like pilgrimages. As an explorer, I really enjoy going on spiritual tours. As a Krishna devotee, I go regularly to Mathura and Vrindavan in India. I've also been to Badrinath, Kedarnath, and many other places. My father has been to Kailash Manasarovar. Meeting new people in holy cities is an amazing experience. Yadav enjoys the surrounding Indian Ocean. Hinduism does not affect me directly in the day-to-day, but yes, I can feel the presence of Hindu identity in the background of my life. For example, it is obligatory to do prayer at the home shrine, and my mother performs that duty with all her devotion. I sometimes feel it is too much hard work for her. I hardly participate in everyday prayer due to work, but I go to temple with them occasionally on Sunday evenings. We have darshan, sit in kirtan, meet friends, have prasad as dinner at the temple, and then come back home after participating in the Shayan Arati, the sleeping bhajan for Krishna. My mother can go to temple every day if time allows. My father visits Mathura, Vrindavan, in India every time he goes on a business trip to Malaysia, once every 2 months. That's how religious my family is. I enjoy going to temples and participating in prayers, but I have carved a different space for myself. Yearly prayer at our house is obligatory, and we invite all family and friends. Mahaprasad, a 7-curry platter, is served to everyone. Come to our house and we go to their house for these yearly prayers. So the beauty of Hinduism is we participate together. Sometimes it feels too much, but the presence of friends makes it bearable. Of course, I have friends outside my religion. Mauritius is a rainbow island with many religions and ethnic groups. Hinduism is flexible, so it is easy for us to mingle. When a friend says Allah is great, I agree that yes, Allah is great. When a friend says Jesus is great, I agree, yes, Jesus is great. Hinduism taught me to respect all religions, but it's not the same with them. Not everyone agrees that Bhagavan is great. It is also easy for me to ignore them. As Hinduism says, respect the view of others. End of story. Oh.